In today's political and economic climate, critics of former President Donald Trump are intensifying their scrutiny of his public behavior, foreign relationships, and economic record, arguing that these issues together paint a troubling picture of the current moment in the United States. Recent online discussion was fueled by new footage from Mar-a-Lago, where Trump was seen dining at a table marked with a name placard reading President Donald J. Trump. Commentators seized on the imagery, arguing that while many Americans are struggling financially, the former president is projecting an image of personal comfort and status. Supporters see it as a routine display of his brand. Critics view it as increasingly out of touch. Those critics have also pointed to Trump's recent social media posts. One featured the caption "Winning is always nice" alongside a photo of him golfing, shared at a time when many Americans report financial strain, rising living costs, and difficulty keeping up with rent and basic needs. Another post highlighted a photo of Trump meeting with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, accompanied by a warm personal message. Detractors argue that the tone of these posts contrasts sharply with the struggles of everyday Americans and raises fresh questions about the nature of his ties to foreign leaders. Commentary has resurfaced around prior U.S. Saudi interactions during Trump's presidency, including arms sales, technology transfers, and broader strategic cooperation. Critics allege that Trump's business interests and political decisions have at times appeared closely intertwined, suggesting potential conflicts of interest. Supporters counter that such relationships are part of traditional realpolitik and long-standing U.S. foreign policy. So far, many of the most serious accusations remain the subject of political debate rather than formal legal conclusions. On economic policy, Trump has recently claimed that, due to his favored nation approach, prescription drug prices fell by 500%, 600%, 700%. Economists and fact-checkers have pushed back on that framing, noting that a price cannot literally fall by more than 100% and pointing out that many healthcare costs and pharmaceutical prices remain elevated. Critics argue that such statements misrepresent the economic reality faced by families dealing with higher medical bills, while Trump allies emphasize his administration's stated efforts to confront high drug costs. At the same time, commentators have highlighted imagery and messaging from Trump-aligned institutions that they characterize as troubling. One widely discussed example involved a Department of Labor graphic using Gothic-style lettering and the phrase "Americanism will prevail," alongside imagery of Abraham Lincoln. Some observers compared the aesthetic to authoritarian or ultranationalist propaganda, while others dismissed those comparisons as overreactions, arguing that the design was simply patriotic branding. Beyond symbolism, analysts have increasingly focused on underlying economic indicators. They note that credit card delinquencies, student loan stress, and foreclosure rates have been rising. A recent analysis cited by University of Michigan economist Justin Wolfers emphasized that job growth between January and September has been weaker than in most of the past 15 years, with unemployment at a multi-year high. Wolfers and others warn that even incremental monthly increases in unemployment translate into significant real-world hardship, as work remains central to people's financial security and sense of dignity. Concerns about political fundraising and corporate influence have also entered the conversation. In a recent interview, J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon was asked why the bank had not joined other large companies in financially supporting a high-profile Trump-related building project in Washington, D.C. Dimon replied that, because J.P. Morgan does extensive business with governments around the world, the bank must be cautious about any action that could be perceived, by current or future officials, as an attempt to buy favor. His remarks underscored how some major institutions are weighing not only their relationship with Trump, but also how future administrations might view such contributions. On the foreign policy front, bipartisan concern has emerged over reports of alleged follow-on or double-tap strikes in the Caribbean region as part of anti-narcotics operations. Both Republican and Democratic leaders of the House and Senate Armed Services Committees have issued joint statements calling for rigorous oversight and a full accounting from the Department of Defense. At the same time, several former senior military legal officers have publicly argued that certain reported tactics, if accurately described, could potentially violate the laws of armed conflict. The Pentagon has pledged to review the circumstances, and Congress has indicated that it will seek further clarification. In Latin America, Trump's rhetoric about Venezuela has also attracted attention. He has characterized the Maduro government as a narco regime and suggested a strong linkage between Venezuela and drugs harming Americans. Policy experts acknowledge that Nicolas Maduro is widely viewed as an authoritarian leader and that his government faces extensive international criticism. However, many security analysts note that the majority of fentanyl and related synthetic opioids entering the United States are generally traced to supply chains involving other routes, particularly through Mexico and the Pacific region. Some critics contend that references to drug trafficking may be functioning as a political pretext for more aggressive posture toward Venezuelan oil, given the country's significant reserves. Trump's fundraising tactics have drawn their own wave of criticism. Commentators have pointed to recent email campaigns in which supporters are urged to make personal sacrifices to help him meet end-of-month goals. Other messages have offered what are described as tariff rebates or similar financial incentives, which, upon closer inspection, link to donation pages where the recipient is asked to contribute money rather than receive it. Detractors argue that this style of messaging risks misleading vulnerable supporters who are already under economic pressure. Trump's team maintains that such appeals are standard political fundraising language and that all contributions are voluntary. Additional policy decisions by Trump-aligned agencies have been cited by activists as examples of unnecessary hostility or insensitivity. Critics point to reported changes in how nursing degrees are classified for educational purposes, arguing that nurses, who played a central role during the pandemic and ongoing healthcare challenges, deserve greater professional recognition, not less. Likewise, reports that the administration chose not to officially commemorate World AIDS Day and guidance discouraging the use of government resources for related observances have been described by longtime HIV/AIDS advocates as needlessly antagonistic toward a vulnerable community and those who support them. Supporters of Trump tend to emphasize different points, arguing that he is challenging entrenched institutions, prioritizing American interests, and attempting to recast global alliances and economic arrangements in ways they see as beneficial. They often view the criticism as exaggerated, partisan, or disconnected from what they regard as the administration's achievements. What is clear, however, is that the political and economic environment around Trump remains intensely polarized. Questions about foreign relationships, economic claims, fundraising ethics, military conduct, and domestic policy priorities are likely to remain central to public debate in the months ahead. Cerebrox News will continue to follow these developments, highlighting verifiable information and presenting the range of perspectives shaping the national conversation.